The Dodgy Bargain. In the Court of Chancery of the State of Delaware. Universal and Casino Co. initially tried to regain control of the casino using the judicial process. Casino Co. had already filed an emergency motion for reconsideration with the Philippine Supreme Court. After the takeover, Casino Co. filed a supplement on June 9, 2022. The Philippine Supreme Court took no action. An email to Asano Takeuchi and a Universal director. Lazaro explained that she and Lorenzana had a relationship with a common friend who was a key person in the Philippines who had helped UEC in the past and who was the best option to lead UEC out of this current disturbing situation. JX60581. She also said that the key person, our common friend, feels that my involvement moving forward is indispensable such that he was reluctant to provide further assistance or to pursue any potential partnership unless her concerns were addressed. The common friend was R0MUALDAZ, Speaker of the House for the Philippines. A nephew by blood of former Philippine First Lady Imelda Marcos, nephew by marriage of former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos, cousin of Philippine Senator Amy Marcos, and cousin of then President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos. JX 674. To confirm her connections, Lazaro texted Takeuchi 2 pictures of herself with R0MUALDAZ. The plan for moving forward also involved delivering something to R0MUALDAZ. The head of Universal's overseas operations would make a business trip to the Philippines, carrying heavy luggage. That included an item for number 2. JX 725 at 4. Once the actual item arrives safely, then a different senior Universal executive would set up an interview with Martin. Asano noted that at that point, since we have kept our promise, it is number 2's turn to keep the promise. Ader testified that he was unaware of any scheme involving R0MUALDAZ, but that testimony was not credible. Eisman's partner Littlejohn texted Ader that UE has enlisted significant political support from a very high level of the Philippine government with compensation of the arrangement all tied to taking back control of the casino. JX 647. 2 days later, Vander Sandy texted Ader and told him that the information he received was very highly confidential and very sensitive and could not be discussed publicly. JX 665. Eisman then researched the R0MUALDAZ and sent the information to Ader and Littlejohn. JX 674. Ader admitted that hearing about number 2 and knew that it was an alias for a high-ranking Philippine official. On July 27, 2022, Universal executive Sato Nobuki traveled from Japan to the Philippines. Another Universal executive, Hajime Takuda, scheduled a meeting with R0MUALDAZ for the next day. JX 730. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. To accommodate the meeting, R0MUALDAZ returned from inspecting an earthquake disaster area in Luzon. JX 731 at 3. The Universal executives gave R0MUALDAZ the letters from 26 Capital and Zama to show that it would be a huge problem if the ruling by the Supreme Court was prolonged any longer. Then they told R0MUALDAZ that they wanted to ask a favor of an early resolution. R0MUALDAZ then and there made ex-par calls and sent a text to several members of the Philippine Supreme Court, including its chairman. Expecting that R0MUALDAZ's intervention would end the takeover, the parties executed an amendment to the merger agreement. It extended the outside date for closing the transaction to October 1, 2022. JX 685. No one addressed the legality of this type of arrangement in the Philippines. It nevertheless appears that Lazaro and Lorenzana brokered a dodgy bargain in which they offered to have R0MUALDAZ intervene in return for 1. Increased control over Casinoco's board. 2. Compensation of $35,000 per month, net of taxes. 3. Employment agreements for the local executives like Yip and Vander Sand. And 4. An item for R0MUALDAZ. At trial, Universal's witnesses offered a series of implausible explanations for the dodgy bargain. They claimed that the heavy luggage referred to original documents from the lawsuits against OKADA in Japan and Hong Kong that had to be transported by hand. either because the takeover had deprived Casino Co. of access to its printers, Asano TR 794-812, or because Philippine law required the submission of originals in court filings, Van der Sandy TR 534. That testimony was not credible. Sixth, the internal universal emails spoke in code, referring not only to the item and heavy luggage, but also to Martin and number 2. Discussions about court filings do not require that type of subterfuge. Finally, when the Universal executives met with R0MUALDAZ, they showed him the letters from 26 Capital and Zama about the deal being in jeopardy. Those letters were not heavy. The clarifying order. After meeting with R0MUALDAZ, Casino Co. made an additional filing with the Philippine Supreme Court seeking vacatur of the status quo ante order. JX 733. The filing included the letters from 26 Capital and Zama. ID at 9/11. Everyone expected that the status quo ante order would soon be lifted. The forcible retaking of the casino. After the Philippine Supreme Court left the status quo ante order in place, the executive branches came to Universal's aid. The Philippine Department of Justice and the Philippine Gaming Commission declared the takeover illegal. For Casino Co., retaking the premises was only the first step in righting the ship. Management had to recreate the casino's security team because some of its members had assisted with the takeover. Management had to check for stolen assets. They had to review all of the contracts that OKADA and his group had executed. Management also faced the Herculean task of preparing the company's financial statements. It will be awkward, to say the least, to craft disclosures that truthfully describe the agreement under which 1. Lazaro and Lorenzana each received $35,000 per month net of taxes and gained the right to appoint 6 members of a 7-member board. 2. Casinoco's senior officers received new employment agreements under which they can only be removed by supermajority vote. And 3. Universal delivered an item to R0MUALDAZ to secure his intervention in Universal's favor. To be sure, the defendants did not originally view the status quo ante order as a meaningful impediment to closing the transaction, and with good reason. OKADA had been trying to set aside his removal for 5 years. The courts of Japan denied him relief. The courts of Hong Kong denied him relief. When he turned to the courts of the Philippines, the trial court and the intermediate court denied his requests for interim relief. With that backdrop, the defendants understandably believed that the status quo ante order resulted from a misunderstanding. They thought they could clarify the situation for the Philippine Supreme Court, and the justices would vacate the order. But that did not happen. After conventional methods failed, Lazaro and Lorenzana proposed the Dodgy bargain, which included the unconventional method of delivering an item to R0MUALDAZ to bring his influence to bear. JX 725. Asano TR 794-95. He did, but without success.
What?